Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, Power Automate to the Rescue, where we are going to be learning how to automate some repetitive Excel tasks using Power Automate and a combination of Office scripts as well. So we're going to be learning how to combine these tools to make really awesome automations. And please be sure to check out the sponsors because all of this is just possible because of the sponsors that are helping to and investing in the community so we all get to learn and know more about the Power Platform and the whole Microsoft ecosystem. There are a couple of sponsors: Proximo 3, Locodera, Rayada Consultancy, and Cubics. I'm probably not your best reference on how to pronounce them because English is not my main language, but make sure to check them out because they are amazing and they are helping us a lot in investing in the community and making all of these efforts possible. And a little bit about me. I am from El Salvador and I work as a Power Platform consultant at Power GI. And I also lead the Power Platform community in my country. And we are always having events. They are usually in Spanish, and this is actually my very first session in English, so hopefully it will go well. And if you want to check out some of the things that we're posting related to the community, this is my LinkedIn, and this is our webpage where you can also check some blogs that I publish monthly. So yeah, let's keep in touch, and hopefully you will like the session enough to look for these links and try to find us and try to connect on LinkedIn and all of that. And well, just after this quick introduction, let's just jump into it. So, as I said at the beginning, a couple minutes back, we are going to be learning how to use Power Automate and Office scripts to create an Excel automation, and we are going to be using this use case for this purpose. And we are going to be working with this scenario in which we receive from some suppliers, from some automatic system, we are receiving some reports, and we are receiving these reports that I am going to show you in a minute. I'm just opening them. This is an example of how the report looks. This is an automated report from the system, and we are performing some tasks on these reports. As you can see, we are the first step we are doing is adding a calculated column with today's date, and that is, for example, today is August 24, 2024. So we are adding this column here and then dragging it to the bottom, and then we are removing one column, which is the ID column, because this is not needed. And then we are renaming the columns because you can see, for example, here that the columns are in Spanish because this is a report that we received from some Latin American countries. So we want to convert these column names into English. And then finally, we convert this Excel file into a CSV. And the purpose of all of this process is to finally upload something to our accounting system. And I think that this is a really cool use case because I don't think there is a team in the world that doesn't receive an Excel file and then usually they have to convert it to another format to upload it, for example, to an accounting system or to the tax authorities and things like that. That is a scenario that I have seen a lot of times while working in this automation world. So hopefully this session will help you know how to use all of these Power Automate tools too. Instead of us having to do all of these steps manually, like you saw, I added the column, I deleted this, and then converting this to Excel, to CSV. Instead of doing that all of that manually, we are going to do all of this with Power Automate and Office scripts. And it's really important to mention that since this is Excel, we could also automate this task using macros. So macros are also an option. However, the issue of using macros in Excel is that you would have to download the file and then execute this automation in your desktop. So that also means, for example, that if you want to share this file with someone else, you will have to share the code so they can execute it, or you will have to, for example, build a Visual Basic add-in or something like that for Excel if you want to do this. But in this scenario, we are going to be looking at a full automated new process in which we are going to be automatically grabbing the emails from our inbox, processing the Excel file, and then just receiving a CSV in a SharePoint, in a SharePoint folder. So the proposed solution is that we are going to use Power Automate to recognize the systems that we are getting. And you can see here that we have this specific subject that we always get in our emails. It says here inventory report. So we are always getting these emails with the same subject, so we are able to identify which are the specific reports that we are receiving that are related to this process. So we are going to use Power Automate to recognize all those emails and process the files related to those emails. And then we are going to be using the Office scripts to apply the automations in the file. And the transformations that we want to apply are the ones that are here, which are add a column and then delete the column. So um, just before jumping into the actual demo, when we are going to see how all of this works, let's just quickly review what are Office scripts. Office scripts is an Excel in the web tool that we can use to automate repetitive tasks in our spreadsheets. We could say that this is a very similar concept to macros in Excel, but with the difference that the Office scripts can run online. So I think that probably one of the best descriptions of what an Office script is that those are macros that we can run online. So, but they can also run in desktop, because if I open, for example, Power Automate, I'm sorry, if I open Excel online, you're gonna notice that I have this tab. Let me open here one SharePoint site, and let's open one of these, and let's open an Excel file. You are going to see that I have here a tab that is called Automate. And for some reason, this is showing in Spanish, so I'm sorry about that. But this is the tab that is showing as Automate, and you can see that here is where I can work with Office scripts. And we also have that in our desktop. If I open an Excel file, and if you have logged in, you are going to also see this Automate tab here, and here you can see the Office scripts tab. So you can, what is really cool about these Office scripts is that they can run both on your desktop and as well in the cloud. So that's one thing they have that is a little bit better compared to a macro, because macros can only run in your desktop and not on the cloud. Of course, the Office scripts have been in the market for less time than macros, so some of the capabilities and the volume they can handle can be very different. But for this specific use case in which we are processing less than 1,000 rows, this is a really good use case in which we can use Office scripts instead of macros and just create a fully automated solution. So for this automated solution, we are going to create an Office script where we are going to be adding a new column. We are going to be converting the range that we are receiving into a table. We are going to rename this table into inventory, and we are going to remove the ID column. And finally, we are going to create a Power Automate workflow that will take the email, send the file to be processed with an Office script, and then return it to convert it to a CSV and then save it into SharePoint. So now that we have reviewed what the solution is going to be about, we can just get into it. And we have a saying for that in Spanish, which is manos a la obra, which just means let's get into it. So let's just get started, and I will open my SharePoint site. And the first thing that we are going to be doing is just uploading one of the files that we have as example. You can see I have 3 different files here, and all of them have different number of rows. So let's just upload any of them into a SharePoint site. And once the file loads, let's just open it. And once we open an Excel file, you should automatically see this Automate tab. If you don't see this Automate tab, that might mean that you don't have the right license. And the minimum license that you need to be able to run Office scripts is at least business standard, if I'm not wrong, which is the license in which you have access to both the online apps and the desktop apps. If your license only has web apps available, that means that you don't have access to the Office scripts. So you need access to a OneDrive account and to the desktop apps to be able to see this tab. And the second requirement is that your admin hasn't explicitly disabled Office scripts. So those are the main two requirements. If you don't see them, just make sure to check which license you have, and then make sure to check with your admin if they have disabled these options. But other than that, everyone should see their Automate tab when they open an Excel file. So we're gonna just go to the Automate tab, and here there is an option that you can see. This is in Spanish, but if I go here, you can also see it here, and it's called Record Actions. So this is very similar to how macros work, where you can record your actions, and also you can just see the code and update the code afterwards you have recorded it. So we're going to click on the Record Actions button, and this is going to open a panel on the right that will let us know when it's ready for recording. So now it's loading, and you can see that is telling me that is now recording. So for example, remember the first thing we are going to be doing is removing this column because, or the system we are going to be uploading this to doesn't need this column, so we can just remove it. So we are going to delete this column, and you can see that as soon as I did that, this is adding some steps on the right, and it's telling me that the first step I did was deleting column A. And Excel went a little bit crazy here, so I'm just going to expand column A, and you can see even that is being recorded. So we will have to delete this step later. Then the next thing we are going to be doing is just converting this range into a table. So we are going to go to the Insert tab, and then we're going to add a table and just hit on Accept. And this will add our range, which was initially a flat range, into an actual table. So now let's go to table design and rename this to inventory. And you can see again, everything is being recorded on the right, just like when we work with macros. And then the final thing is that we are going to be adding the date. So I will go here to the FX and then look for the format. For the text format function, and here it's asking us which value we want to convert, and in this case it's the today. Well, it's in Spanish, so I'm sorry, that's in Spanish it's hoy, and then the format that we want to convert it is month, day, and year, so it's in Spanish as well, so I will have to add an A instead of a Y, and then I'm going to click on Insert. Okay, so here I missed to add the double quotes. And okay, so we need month, day, and then year. Okay, now it's not liking me. So yeah, here we go. So yeah, it was the year was processing as in English. So yeah, so this is the formula that we are going to be using here. And you can see that here we have the steps as well. So now that we have it ready, now I can stop recording. And now that I stop recording, I will be able to see the script that was generated. So I will just click on the script, and I'm going to rename it. So I will I will remember what's the name of the script I was working on. So let's just rename it to something like process inventory Excel files. And then here we have the code, and you can see that the code was generated. We can see that the first thing we did was deleting this column A. Then we did the thing where I had to adjust how wide my column A was because the text was disappearing. So we can remove this because we are not going to be needing this in the final automation. Then you can see that we converted this text, this range that was flat into an actual table, and that we renamed it to inventory. And finally, we added our formula, which is the text, and then today, and then the format in which we wanted to show it. And And this last step, we're not going to be using it because it's just updating the format, so we don't need it. And now I can save my script. And you can see, for example, that this table had 898 columns, sorry, 98 rows. So you can see here that the range that I am using is fixed. If I run this same script on a different file that has more or less row, for now, the way it is, it's not going to recognize the number of rows in the new file. It's always going to be using this fixed number to create the table. So in this case, for example, let's just upload a different file. And let's open this. And I have created my script, and I can reuse the script into different files. So I will just go to my Automate tab. And here you can see that I have the process inventory Excel files. And I can just run this same script in my Excel file, and you can see it did everything. It removed the column that we didn't need. It added the date, as you can see. And if I go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see that it added my table all the way until row 898. And we know that we don't want that. We want Power Automate or the script to be able to recognize that we are working with a dynamic number of rows. So for us to do that, dynamic part, it's actually pretty easy. You know that in Excel, you can, for example, select the first cell and then do Control A. And that is kind of going to recognize everything that you have in your spreadsheet. Is going to recognize all the area that is being used. So in this case, we can do a similar thing in our Office script. So let's go back to edit. And what I can do is ask Power Automate to find row A1, which I know that that's the place where my table starts. So I'm going to change that on this side of the screen and just say get range A1. And then I can use this function that is called get surrounding region. And it's the one that is here. And I can just open and close parentheses. And after that, it's going to dynamically add my table based on the number of rows that are available in the table. So it's going, if it has only 10 rows, it's going to add the table on those 10 rows. Or if it's going to add more than 800 rows, it's also going to work on that. So let's save this script and let's upload the file that has like 700 rows, which is this one that we have here. So let's upload it, and we are going to see how the script will work now on that one, and will dynamically add the number of rows in the table depending on the actual number of rows in our script. So let's go here to Automate, and then let's select again the process inventory script. Let's edit, and then let's run. Okay, now it has added everything. And if I go to the bottom of my table, you're going to see that now it added only the 700 rows, because now we have this dynamic thing going on that is going to automatically recognize the number of rows that we have. So the first part of our solution is ready, which is creating the Office scripts that does all of these steps, which is adding a new column, then converting the table into a range, then renaming it to inventory, and then removing the ID column. So those are the things that we are currently doing now that the Office script is helping us to automate. So now we need to add some other parts to our automation. So let's go back here, and let's go to Power Automate. So here I am in the Power Automate portal. I can just go to my flows. And in the meantime, I'm just going to open an Outlook tab as well. And I'm going to go here to New Flow, and then we are going to be using an automated cloud flow, because remember that automated cloud flows are those that get started by an event. Those get triggered when something happens, and the thing that will happen here is when we get a new email from the automated system, we want this flow to start and to apply the processes that we just talked about, which is converting to CSV and all of that. So in this case, we are going to be using when a new email arrives, which is the one that we have here. That's the one we're going to select, and we are going to add a name to this script and then hit on create. And I'm really into this, into still using the classic designer. So I'm sorry if there is someone watching this session that uses the new designer. But when we are in a demo, I prefer to use the classic one because it's a little bit more predictive. And sometimes the new designer can have a little bit of issues. So we can't afford to have issues when we are running a live demo. So I'm sorry, but we will have to switch to the classic designer because it's a little bit more stable. And it's good to give opportunity to the new designer. Microsoft has improved it a lot. But for this session, we are going to keep using the classic designer. But of course, everything else, everything that we are going to be doing in the classic designer is really similar to what we will be doing in the new designer. So everything is the way that we set up. Most of the actions are pretty similar. So there's not going to be much difference if you do it in the classic designer or in the new designer. So the first thing that we are going to do is to define what is the setup of the emails that we are getting. So the first thing we're going to be doing is that we want to include the attachments. And the next thing is that we want to work only with attachments, with emails that contain attachment. Then the next thing we are going to be doing is just adding what is the subject filter or the text that our subject will always contain. So in this case, we are going to say that this is the text that we know this is all these emails will contain. And this way we can process these files only when this subject is contained, when this text is contained in the subject. So now that we have that, we can just get the content of the file and then save it into SharePoint. So what we are going to be doing is just create file. We are going to be using the create file action from the SharePoint connector. So this is going to ask us where is the SharePoint site that you want to save this file into. So in this one, it's this one that it's called Monthly El Salvador User Group. And then it's going to ask me where is the folder that, where is the path of the folder. So in this case, it's going to be shared documents. And then under this, I have another folder that is called the Scottish Summit. So I'm going to select that folder where everything is going to be saved. Then it's going to ask me what's the file name. In this case, what I'll be doing is I'll be using this GUID expression, which we can use to generate random text. And that way, for example, if two files are named the same way in different emails or something like that, they are going to always have different names, and we ensure that we are not going to face the issue of some files having the same name, so some files not being saved. So I'm just going to hit OK, and this is going to generate some random text in the file name. And finally, I'm going to write the extension, which is XLSX, which is always the extension for Excel. And then, sorry, and then Power Automate will ask me, what's the file content you want to save into SharePoint? And here you can see in the right side of the screen, Power Automate works from a perspective of inputs and outputs. You can see here that I defined some input parameters to indicate Power Automate how to read the email and which emails to grab. But once that is done, Power Automate gives me back some information from this email. So I can grab, for example, who sent it. I can grab when it was sent. I can grab what's the attachment name and all of that. So in this case, Power Automate is giving me back the content of my attachment. So you can see that it automatically recognizes that here we are waiting for some file content. And this is the data that Power Automate is suggesting that I should be using. So I'm going to click on it. And you can see that what happened now is that we only have this create file action. And now we have this apply to each, which just means that we can have one or many files in our attachment. We don't know how many this is going to have, and that these attachments, that this process or these steps that we are going to define are going to apply to each of them. Now we need to make a small update to this formula, and I usually like having the my notepad here so I can write some code, because when you work with Outlook, the attachments come in base 64 format. But in SharePoint, you need to save them in binary format. So we need to convert them. And one of the advantages of the new designer is that you don't have to do this. It automatically makes the update for you. But in this case, we are using this classic designer. So we are going to be using this base 64 to binary formula. So I'm just going to place the cursor right next to attachment content. I'm going to click on, I'm going to hit Control A in my keyboard so I can select everything, and then I'm going to copy and paste it in between my, in between the brackets of my base 64 to binary function. And then I'm going to remove this curly bracket and the at, and I'm going to copy all of this formula and put it here. So I will go back to this expression, then paste it, and then hit on OK. And now you can see that I have the file name and what is the content that I want to save it with. And in this case, we are going to save the file with these formats. And now what this will happen is that it will add my file into this folder. And now I can do the same, the next step, which is applying the transformations that we have been talking about. So for that, we are going to be using the action that is called run script. And that is under the Excel connector. So there's also a way to run it from a SharePoint library if you upload your script, but in this case, to SharePoint. But in this case, we are going to be using the classic run script one. So I'm just going to click on it. And then it's going to ask me, where is my file? In this case, it is under the SharePoint group that is related to the El Salvador user group. And then it will ask me which library it is, and then its documents, and then it's going to ask me which file it is. And in this case, I could be selecting the file here, but you know that the file is always going to be dynamic. So in this case, what we need to do is we need to use this ID that is coming from the create file action. So let's just pass this, and that way Power Automate will always execute the script on the file that we just created, and it's going to be dynamic. And finally, it's going to ask me which script I want to run. And in this case, is the process inventory Excel files, which is the script that we just created a couple minutes back. So now it's giving me this red error, but it will go away, as you can see, pretty quickly. So now we have created the file, then we run the script. And the next thing that we want to do is retrieve the results from the script, because you know that we have here in the table, we have the resulting 5 columns, and we need to grab them from the Excel file. So for that, we are going to be using the list rows in a table from, again, the Excel connector. So here it is. I selected the Excel connector, and then list row present in a table. And here, again, it's going to ask us what is the SharePoint site, and then let's select the SharePoint site that we are interested in. Again, it's going to ask us what's the library. And here, it's going to ask us what is the file. But in this case, we can do the same thing that we did here, that we passed an ID. However, if we do that, there is no way Power Automate will know what are the columns that we are interested in. And remember that we need to convert this into CSV. So we are going to, for now, we are going to need this column name so we don't have to write that much code in Power Automate. So for now, I will select one of the files that I uploaded, and then we will come back to update this so it's dynamic. So for now, I will select any of my 3 files, and then I will select the table name that we know that is always going to be renamed into inventory. So now that we have this, I will go ahead and save, and we are going to quickly test this automation so we can see everything all the way until here. So let's just send one of these. Let's send one of these files into. So let's send it. Okay, so I just sent it to the email, so we should receive it in a moment. Let's see. I'm going to send another one just in case. Okay, it seems like, okay, yeah, so we got it now. It's here. We got actually two of them. So our workflow should be starting soon. So we are going to see how the file is created, how the script is generated, and how it looks when we are getting the columns from Excel. So yeah, let's open one of them. And if I go to my SharePoint site, you're going to see that we will have two new files with some random text. Yeah, these are the two of them. So this one was created first. If I open it, this should have the transformations applied to it. Okay, so it seems that something happened. Yeah, I added some by mistake. I added an image into the email, so that's why one of them was failing. So let's open the other one. So yeah, you can see this one opened properly. This one was a mistake. We are not going to be sending any image, so let's delete this one. And yeah, you can see here that we added all the transformations and that we have the functions, and we have here we also have here the formula that for some reason here is not liking it. So yeah, here it is. And yeah, so now it seems like it worked. And when I see the results of my automation, you are going to be seeing that when I get the rows from Excel, we are going to have like two additional columns that we are not going to be needing. And you can see here that this is the result when I grab it, and you can see that I have the date, where the item is coming from, then I have the other columns, but Excel is adding these two, and we don't need these two in the final result. So what we need to do is to remove them from the results that we are going to be saving. So in this case, let's just add a new step. To remove those, we can use this select select data operation function. And if I go here to select, and then I hit here from, and then it's going to ask me what is the JSON file that we are going to be working with. In this case, it's the result from the previous table. And then here I can just add what are the column names, and you remember that we have them here in Spanish. So we are just going to add them in English. So let's select here product, and then it's going to be category, and then it's going to be quantity and the precedent and the from. So let's write quantity here, and then the next column is from, and then finally it's date. So these are the column headers that we want to use, and on the right side we are going to have the product name. So if I select it on the right, then I'm also going to select the column name for category, which is here. I'm also going to select quantity. And this is the reason why we are keeping this here as that we are keeping this as a selected file, because that way we can recognize what are the columns. When we make this dynamic, this is not going to work. So we are not going to be seeing these column names, and that's why we are just keeping it dynamic. And then the date, it's going to be the column date that we just added. So now that we have selected what are the columns that we need, there is an actual action that we can use in Power Automate that is called CSV. So this is as well in the data operation connector, and this connector has this action that is called create CSV table. So what this is going to do is it's going to take the results from the previous action where we were just renaming the columns and selecting which columns we need in the final output, and then convert it to CSV. So now I will select this here, and we are going to test this, and let's hit on save. And the final thing we are going to be doing is we are going to be replacing this by the ID of the file that we are generating each time. So let's do here, let's select the ID from the create file action. And immediately when we do that, we are no longer able to recognize what's the table name. And that is because there's no way Power Automate can know what's the structure of the file. So we cannot show us any recommendation when it comes to the table name. So in this case, what we are going to be doing is just writing in between brackets, and then in single quotes in the formula string, we are going to just write the name of the table that we know it's always going to have, because remember that we have here an action. We have here an action on the right on the script that is renaming always our function from or table from this generic name to one specific name, which is called inventory. So we are always renaming it to that. So we are safe here to just hard code this this text, because we know the table is always going to contain that. So now we can hit on save, and we are going to execute again this so we can see what is really the select action doing and what is the table action doing. And now, just as a comment, if I try to add here a column, you remember that previously when I was mapping what are my headers and what is my column that I want to assign to that column, I was just typing in the names like product, category, and all of that. And now that I have selected this ID as the dynamic input for my Excel connector, you can see that Power Automate doesn't longer know what's the name of the column that we want to work with, because there's no way Power Automate can know what's the structure, what are the tables, what are the columns that we have in our file, because here we are passing a dynamic file. And that's why I usually write first, I just select a file that I know that will have the structure of my final file. I create the setup with that, and then I go back and change it to be dynamic. So that way we don't have to write these column names and all of that. So that saves us some minutes. Okay, so now that we have saved this, we are going to be using the same file, the same run that we just worked with. So let's just resubmit and then hit OK. And we will see how this looks. Okay, so it seems like the file was generated. And let's see how Power Automate is doing. It seems like it all finished. And here we created the file, then we ran the script on top of it, then we extracted the results from Excel, and you can see that we have here all of these columns. And finally, we have here these, we have here the select, and it seems like it's not liking what we are doing. Oh yes, yeah, it's here. You can see that the result from the Excel file includes these two columns that we have here, but then when we are converting this into the final result, we are just getting all the columns that we actually need. So in this case, it's still not recognizing the formula for some reason. We're going to try to put it in English and see if that works. And once we have the 5 resulting columns, you can see that the CSV file, now we have it like this, and now we can just save the file. So we did this select action because Excel includes these two columns that we don't need in the final result. So we just grab this information. So in this case, I'm not sure why it's not liking that we are adding this column in Spanish. I think that probably there's something crazy going on here with Excel. So because if I just hit on enter, it just recognizes everything. So something is off here. I'm sure it's because it's like combined between English and Spanish. So to solve this, what I will do is just go back to my Power Automate flow here, and I'm going to remove the date, unfortunately. And I will do an expression here, and I'm going to add a date format, date time, and we are going to format UTC now in the format that we want to work with, which is month, day, and year. And that way, we are not going to be grabbing, unfortunately, the value from the Excel file. We are just going to be adding it from here. So I will just hit OK. And that way it's going to work. I'm sure that if we had everything in English, probably it would be working, or if we had everything in Spanish, or something like that. So, okay, let's just save that. And the final thing that we can do is just add a new action. And then we can just use again the create file action. So let's do create file, and here create file again. And we are going to rename this to create file CSV. And we are going to be selecting the El Salvador user group, which is the one that we have here. And we are going to be saving this into SharePoint. And it's the Scottish Summit folder. And here we are going to be using the file name, the same thing we did for the one above, in which we were generating some random text. So we're going to be using this formula. But in this case, what we are going to do is to use CSV format instead of XLS, because the final thing we want is to just generate it in CSV. This could also work if we wanted to do, for example, TXT. So those are the same thing would happen. We could create it in either in CSV or TXT. And so we're going to save it like that. And then in the file content, we are just going to select here the output from the CSV table. So we can just save it. And after that, we are going to just have all automation ready, where we can just create a file, we can run the script, then we get the data from the Excel results, then we just select the columns we are interested in, then we convert these results into CSV, and then we save this into SharePoint. So let's hit on save, and let's execute again our automation so we can see it working. Okay, so it's running, and it seems like it finished. So we create a file, we run the script, we got the data from Excel, then we remove these two columns that we didn't need, and now we have the result. And you can see that now that the date is working properly. Then we converted that into a CSV format, and then we saved that into SharePoint. If I go here to my SharePoint site, you are going to see that we need to have one of these CSVs, which is the one that we have here. And we can download this file, or we can open it here, and it's going to show, as you can see, now we have this information in our CSV document. And we can also open it from our desktop. And you can see that we have everything just completed. Probably the last thing that we could be needing is to send the end user, for example, the link to the file or a link to the folder. So in that case, we can either send it through email or something, but we can use this action that is called create sharing link for a file or folder. And we can just select what's the SharePoint site, and then what's the library name, and then what's the ID of the file that we want to send the link to. And then we can just send the link type. It's going to be view only, for example, and anyone in the organization can see it. And now, for example, we can send an email with this link to someone that is going to be the person, for example, that will grab the CSV and just I can select someone's name and then just tell them your file is ready, and then just send them the link that we just generated, and then I can click on send. So now we're going to send just a different example so we can see it working with a different file. So I'm going to send this one. And let's send it so we can see it working with a different document. Okay. So let's send. And for now, let's execute again the same file that we have been working with. And so we can see how the link looks when we receive it in our email. Okay, so now it's telling me that my file is ready. So I have it here, and if I open it, you can see that I have my CSV file. I can download it, and I can use it now to upload this CSV into my into the accounting system. You can see now that I received the other file, which is the one from the 06. The one that we were working initially was this one from the 07. So I will send the other one that is from the 08. So we should receive this email, the resulting email in a bit, because it should be executing soon. So yeah, my file is ready. So now let's just send the last file that we have as example. And it's the same thing. We have the link here that links to the file that we just uploaded to SharePoint. And something that we could also do, something that we could also do is to just delete the files that are resulting here. We can add that to the automation, because we know that the users won't really be needing these XCLS files. They are just going to be using the CSV. And let's just wait for the final file. Because it seems like it takes some time to receive it, because I still haven't received the 08 file. So yeah, here it is. And yeah, now there's one thing that we need to mention, and it's that this Excel file list rows present in a table has some limitations. For now, by default, it only grabs around 250 rows. So if you know that your file will contain more than that, you need to make sure to go to settings and then turn on pagination. And in this case, for example, I know my files will always have less than 1,500 rows. So I will just set that as the limit, and then I am going to hit on done. If we check the CSV files that we have been generating, they only have 256 rows. So we always need to make sure to update this setting if we want to work with these Excel files that have more than that, because the CSVs will return less data. So let's just execute one more, so we make sure that the last link that we receive actually has the all the rows that we are going to be needing. So now you'll see that it takes a little bit longer, because we are processing and grabbing more rows from this Excel connector. And just keep in mind that Power Automate is not an ETL tool. So we don't, if the volume is going to be too high, probably we can use a different tool and not Power Automate. But for this volume that we are working with, Power Automate works just well, because it combines really perfectly with the Office scripts to process all the file. So now I got my file. Let's get the link and let's open it. And here we should see all the 700 and something rows. yeah, which is here. So we were missing to add that small update in the setup so we can bring all the information. And well, that's it for my presentation. I'm sorry about the issues with the English Spanish column, but I'm glad we were able to sort it out with some Power Automate effects functions. So it worked at the end and it was showing the final result that we need. And thanks again to the sponsors who are helping in these community efforts to because there are different parts that are really important to the community. One part is people that want to learn more and that want to share, and the other part is also sponsors like the ones we have that are willing to invest in the community and that are part of the community effort to get the voice out of from all these technologies. So thank you to Proximo 3, Locodera, Riada Consultancy, and Cubics for helping with these community efforts and for sponsoring the virtual sessions for the Scottish Summit 2024. And well, that's it from my side. And I hope that this was useful for you and that you can find any cool use case for Office scripts in what you do in your every day. So this was for Automate to the Rescue, and we automated some of those boring Excel tasks that I'm sure that many teams in the world have it. So thank you so much, and see you next time.